We all want a better, more fulfilling, and thriving life. So, this podcast is documentation of our journey towards striving and reaching these goals.
We're here to have fun, to experience, to adapt, to embrace change, and to rediscover who we are because we get to decide.
And though self discovery will look different for each individual, our mission here at the Soul Barbecue Tribe is to share some ways that we found have worked for us.
Here we engage in open dialogue conversations that provide tools and insights designed to better assist personal growth on various levels in a variety of ways.
It's time to kick back. You're invited to the barbecue. Soul Barbecue, a conscious kickback.
There's some people who
You
there's some
said that.
people who
Go ahead.
What?
Go ahead. No, there's some people who would.
I was gonna say, there's some people who maybe their frequencies are a little lower, so they might be more susceptible to certain influences. That's all.
I was gonna say, because you said you can't always control people or something like that, and I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that. Like, what did you
Yeah,
mean?
like you cannot always control people. Like people love to be like, "Oh man, like I got a game. I can finesse this person." But or even we can bring on the spiritual tip, like, "Ooh, I got this love spell," and like all those things they might attribute to getting that person. But what I've come to discover is it's kind of like a game of probability.
Take us to school then. What do you mean?
Um,
Like, if the odds are in your favor or not,
May
or
the odds forever be in your favor. So basically, just doing those things like maybe affirmations, a love spell, or just your finessing energy. All those things are just. Ooh, hold up. All right, sorry, we had some rodent issues.
what?
I'm recording in a little basement, so there was some kind of gnat trying to get on my drink,
Oh.
and we don't want to do that. But all those things that I was just talking about, they just are basically adding to your probability of getting the outcome that you want. So,
Okay. But why did you specifically say why take away the control element of it? Or like why was that the word you used, I guess? I was curious about that.
I guess I use control because I feel like in some way we're all trying to control something in our life.
Yeah.
Even if we're trying to improve, we're trying to avoid that stems from we wanted to control something or limit something, which
Or
again is controlling. So,
yeah, I hear that. And I even think like controlling how it is now or controlling the outcome, right? So like when you were saying the avoid part, it made me think about you're trying to avoid or you're trying to control the outcome if you're trying to avoid something, right?
right.
But I do
Mm-hmm.
feel like, have you ever had a time where like maybe because you tried to control something so much that literally what you did not want to happen happened?
Oh yeah, like a self-fulfilling prophecy,
Yes.
essentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a thin line between like fulfilling the things you don't want to do and and giving it that focus versus like, hey, I'm trying to avoid this. So it's like you kind of have to have like a balancing act where you're
Mhm.
aware of what you don't want, but you're not fully focusing on that. You're more like, hey, I'm aware of this, but I'm going to focus my energy on the solutions. So that way you're not
Yes.
avoiding anything and you're kind of like integrating what you don't want, but you're more so putting your focus on the other half of that, which is the solution or what you kind of are intending to occur.
Right. Okay. I accidentally muted myself for a second there. Okay, so before we
Same.
keep going,
Oh yeah.
before we keep going, I love where this conversation is going. I have some other ideas in my head right now, but I just wanted to say hello. Hello everybody, and welcome to
Hi
another
everyone.
episode of Soul Barbecue.
A conscious kickback. We are your hosts. I'm Steven
And
and
and I'm
go ahead, girl.
Kelsey. It's so nice to be here with y'all today. As you can see, we're kind of leaning in on this topic right now because I loved when you were talking about this. You said that word control, and I'm like, this has been coming up so much
Control.
for me recently. My clients, like, I'm just seeing this everywhere. Like, I don't know when to control this, and I'm trying to let go of control, and and I'm just like, wow, you know what? I feel like no matter where we are in life, how much money you make, what your background is, like this is something that literally everybody struggles with. You know, everybody's trying to struggle or not
Mhm.
trying to struggle, but everyone's, trying to figure this out or like when do I kind of relinquish that control versus lean into control more or surrender is a word I've been using with some of my clients too, but I love what you were talking about, Stephen, when you were saying you know, sometimes that self-fulfilling prophecy happens because it's where you're giving more of your energy, where you're focusing more of your energy. And I think like there's something so special about giving more energy to what we do want and focusing on that versus
Right.
what we don't want in our mind more, right? So if I'm like,
Hmm.
oh my God, just for a really loose example, if I'm always like, oh, I'm choosing to eat this because I don't want to have a heart attack. Oh my gosh, I don't want to have a heart attack. I don't want to have you know what
Ooh.
I mean? Like always saying that. And so I'm kind of becoming that, if we're going to be spiritual for a second here, I'm kind of becoming that frequency match for said health ailments that I do not want, right? Versus
Exactly.
just these foods make me feel good. I feel so good when I eat this apple. I feel so good. Like I'm giving my energy to feeling good. You know what I mean? Instead of like, oh, I don't want
Yeah.
this to happen. I'm
Or
enjoying
I'm a
this thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, like I'm avoiding a heart attack. I'm not trying to avoid a heart attack. I'm simply just feeling good. And typically
Yeah.
you don't feel good during a heart attack. So just by default, by focusing on the feeling good, you're putting your energy on that for real. Like,
Typically not. Yeah.
so it's just that logic. Like just a perspective switch
Right.
can literally change so much. So
Yeah. And I think like
it's wild.
but we're so like wired, I think, from young and from society is just like focusing on negative things. I feel like negativity gets a lot more focus versus the
Oh yeah.
positive things. And it's how they kind of, right, powers that be or whatever. But we're wired that way in a sense to like focus on those things. And sometimes it's harder to, you know, give more to the good things. That's why if you like, for example, people are, I was reading a study, like people are more inclined to write a review if they had a negative experience versus if they had a positive experience because they're looking for a way to kind of like expel some of that energy or take back control of the experience they had by like, oh, I didn't like this, so I'm gonna take your whole business is coming down because you got one
You
star,
losing 2 stars
Right.
tonight, baby. You losing 2 stars from this review. You know what kind of pool I got on IG, baby?
Right.
Watch. Yeah, I got you. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
it's a slippery slope with that. I feel a lot of times the negativity, it gets all the highlights because yeah, that's kind of what we're prone to. Like if you're
Mhm.
just scrolling and you might see some pretty shit, but then you're like, oh, this celebrity overdose. You're like, oh, who is this?
Ooh,
What happened?
yeah.
It's just kind of so having that awareness, it's just like, okay, when this happens, all right, this is what's going down, but maybe we can capture ourselves in those moments and maybe reframe it,
Mm.
perhaps.
Reframe it. When you say reframe, what would that look like? What would that look like if you had to kind of walk us through any type of
Oof.
scenario or something like that?
Well,
How might
let's
one
let's
reframe?
let's change this and let's change the scenario for the
Okay.
reframe. Well, let's get off the phone maybe for a second.
Hmm.
I guess we can use an example for me. So, I do a lot of things as far as work goes, and there's certain tasks that are going to be like directly tied to, I guess, my commissions, right? Okay, so a lot of my
Mm-hmm.
work is action based. So just it's not a based off of hourly, it's just based off of, action and performance. So if you don't perform correct, you don't get paid. Doesn't matter if you were there for 5 hours, 2 hours, 9 hours, kind of thing. So you
Mm,
have to put in the work to make sure that you get set up. So there's actions and tasks tied to that situation, and then there's actions and tasks tied to things around the money making activities. So if I'm focusing on maybe doing the money making activities and that gets me a certain, I guess, salary,
mhm,
and or it doesn't get me a certain salary, instead of saying, oh man, I didn't make my financial, I guess goals for this week, maybe you can reframe that and say, well, let me look at those tasks around those uh I guess duties to get the money, to see what kind of changes I can make to possibly
mm,
get to where I can get that or increase my odds that I will get to those next goals. So it's just
right.
about like taking the elements that are there and seeing how we got to those elements, how we got to that
Mhm,
destination, and then maybe rerouting that
mhm.
so that you get to maybe a better destination. So I don't know if that made
Yeah,
too much
what
sense.
I'm hearing you say is kinda like breaking it down, right? So you were
Breaking it
first
down.
yeah, like you were first because you were first kinda talking about how, like, you have, work that's based off of productivity, right? Or reward basically that's based off of this productivity and like what you can do, not hourly, things like that. But if you didn't make it to
Yeah.
a certain place, you're like, okay, well, maybe how can I improve or what else can I do? And breaking that down and looking objectively at what all the steps were leading up to this point, right? Like what went well, what could I work on more, you know? And I
Mm-hmm.
think like in your example that you were just giving, and just really for a lot of us, we can look at that as like where is there an opportunity to improve, you know?
Exactly.
And I think that that's great because looking at something as like this is an opportunity for me now is more of a again kind of leaning more positive versus I didn't do well on this or I failed. I hear so many people saying that now,
Mm-hmm.
like they feel like they failed. I feel like I failed, and it's like, well, you also have an opportunity here to grow. This is a growth opportunity and like telling yourself that and kind of going over the things when you break it down more, you can see where you actually have won or succeeded within the work you did, right? Because I'm sure not every day
Right.
was a failure. Not every day was a bad day.
No. And I guess the reason why I brought that kind of elusive is because like I feel like a lot of times we're very hard on ourselves. And it
Yeah.
can just be about little things or like the big things like mentally. And if you have a job like mine where you have to be performance based, even if you mess up or you're doing bad, you can't continuously keep telling yourself negative things. You have to say, okay, I did good at this. You have to force yourself to reframe and focus on the good, because who wants to wake up every morning if you're just constantly having negativity that, oh man, yesterday this happened, so it's gonna happen
Yeah.
again today, because so if you're also constantly thinking of like the bullshit, then you're gonna constantly get that. So you have to, I'm like forced to reframe to
Mhm.
in order to make sure that my income is coming in. So all that being said is to say, like, don't be too hard on yourself. Like, life is a marathon. So if you lose a race or a lap or two, it's good.
Yeah.
Like, you just keep pushing. So
How can you even reframe that when you were just saying, like, you have to force yourself to do something? Like, are you
you're
forcing
wise.
yourself
I'm
or
forcing my I'm forcing myself because I have a goal in mind. So this also ties into discipline.
Hmm.
Sometimes we just kind of have to buckle up and say, "Hey, I really want this goal. I really want to manifest in this direction, or I
Mhm.
really have an intention for this." But the other half of that intention or wish or manifestation is the work, is
Yeah.
those action steps. So if you want something, you have to go after it. And sometimes to go after it, you have to break that down into steps.
Mhm.
So by breaking it down, you have like a more clear, concise way to just increase the odds of you getting that,
Hmm.
or guarantee the odds of you getting that.
This is
So
you're I was in the gym the other day and I was having a
Mm-hmm.
conversation about something similar where I was working out with someone and they were saying like I don't basically like they didn't want to do it. I don't want to do this. I don't and I was saying I was like, most of the time I don't want to go to the gym. Like sometimes I don't want to go. Like I don't feel like going. However,
Mm-hmm.
I care more about how this is benefiting me and how good I feel after and all of those things more than that like, you know, um initial feeling of honestly laziness sometimes, right? So for
Mm-hmm.
me, and this is where this word surrender is helpful because
Ooh.
at in those moments, I will surrender to my real emotions, right? Instead of trying to psych myself out and say like, no, I'm actually really happy to go to the gym or whatever. Like I will surrender to the feeling of in this moment, I actually feel lazy or I feel like I would rather, watch House Hunters or play a video game or just be social, like go do
Mm-hmm.
something social and cancel my gym time. I feel like I would rather do those things. However, I'm going to surrender to my feeling, lean into my action, right? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to complete this particular task. And usually every single time I do that, I feel this way, I acknowledge this thing, I take a step back to, decide what my action will be. I do my action. I'm realizing that even though I have a feeling, I don't necessarily need to control that feeling and try to make it change at all. And I don't need to try to like make myself feel bad necessarily for having that feeling at all. Like I can be
Right.
okay having that feeling and still proceed with my day if you know what I mean, kind of.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just kind of to go into that a little bit and
Yeah.
then make a small correction. When I was
Mhm.
saying earlier about forcing myself to do certain things, that
Yeah.
doesn't mean like I always want to do it or
Yeah.
that I might not have negative feelings like you were saying that come up. And when those do, I do address them. I'm like, okay, I really don't feel like doing this. Like just the other day I had like a whole agenda of shit to do. And I was like, man, I just want to sit here and like play games and,
Mhm.
turn up. But then I was like, well, let me do like two of these things. And then I
Okay.
did that. Then I was like, oh shit, this is only took like, an hour. So I did the
Right.
other two. And then
Right.
in 2 hours, the whole list was done. And
Mhm.
then I just went back to doing what I wanted to do anyways. But it's just kind of having that initial like,
Yeah.
okay, I know I don't want to do it, but let me kind of work through that and be
Mhm.
honest about it.
Work
So,
through it.
yeah, I
Yeah.
love that you were like working through your natural feelings or emotions. That's convictions. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
because I think like even with what you were saying about, with work and how you think through everything and even breaking it down is very helpful because it becomes not this big puzzle that you need to do. It's like
Mhm.
smaller steps. But I think like with everyone, like I don't know, it's just more helpful when we admit something or not even admit, accept. I think like that's the thing, like accepting how you feel, accepting where you are is a big part of surrendering to certain emotions in a situation too, right? Like if
Mhm.
you have something unfortunate happen in your life, let's say passing of a loved one, trying to be so in denial is a part of that whole impulse to control something, right? So like I'm trying to control this right now, like this can't be happening and it's like, once you get there's so many different stages of grief, but once you get to that acceptance place, it also gives you peace versus trying to deny or control, that could lead you into depression, right? Because you're almost wishing that something was different than how it really is.
Yes, I have a question for the
Go,
class.
yeah, go for it.
Um, so when you're saying like accepting your circumstance or whatnot,
Hmm.
would you would you say that is similar to acknowledgement or is that different? Or are they the
It's
same in this instance?
I would say they're different. Like I can acknowledge something but not accept it, right? So, we're throwing out a lot of examples today, but in times in my past where maybe I there was like infidelity in a relationship that I was in, right? I could admit
Mm-hmm.
it. I can say like this happened, but if I'm beating myself up about all of the things like, "Oh, I should have did this better. I should have did that," or, even gaslighting myself about the situation, like, I'm not actually accepting it. Like, I know I think acknowledgement is saying like, "Okay, I can see that this thing did happen," but acceptance is kind of like I don't wanna say being okay in a sense that, like, the thing was okay, but allowing yourself to realize that it's true and I'm also, like, facing it. It's true and I'm also gonna hold that with me, like, I'm settling into it more so. I'm at peace with what has gone on. For me, that's more of an acceptance phase, you know what I mean? Like, this is how
Got
things
you.
are. I'm not gonna try to explain this away. I'm not acknowledging this and then saying, "But da 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 da." Have you ever had someone give you an apology or something and they have that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, "Hey, I'm sorry that this," and then they'll try to explain it away, like, "I did this because you were acting like this," or "But this and blah, blah, blah," and you're like, "This not even an apology no more." So
Yeah.
you might kinda be acknowledging what you did, but you're not actually accepting your actions or accepting how this has affected me or accepting any of that or really surrendering to this literal whole apology. You're still trying to control the outcome, and you're still trying to control how I feel and how I'm seeing the situation.
Yeah. And you were just touching upon my next point was how
Mhm.
acceptance would be more of the, I guess, surrenderance of the whole
Yes.
aspect, where acknowledgement is kind of control because you're trying to explain away. You're like, yeah,
Mhm.
that happened, but here's why. When really you need to just surrender that it was out of your control
Right.
and it happened. Now work through it, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think, like, you can acknowledge and just acknowledge and stop. You can, but I think sometimes with acknowledgement, I think people sometimes feel like that's all they need to do. Well, I said, yeah, I said that did happen. It's like, right, but there was still
Oh, I
maybe
know
like a
about it.
validation piece that was missing,
Hmm.
just little things like that. But I was gonna ask you, Stephen, is there anywhere in your life right now that you feel you may be trying to control too much and maybe there's some room for surrender?
Oh yeah. Um,
Did
yeah.
you Can you share
I guess
anything with us?
the first example, I guess, or would be like, I guess with dating, I guess,
Mhm.
people are gonna be people. And I kind of have to,
People do be people.
I
Mhm.
guess, I guess surrender to that in the sense where
Yeah.
if they show you something, don't think you can change it. Just be like, okay, that's them. Can I deal with this long term? Yes or no? And then make a decision off of that. So
Mhm.
I've been just really diving into that because I had to realize that no, I'm not gonna say. I sometimes I gotta like self edit myself because some
Mhm.
of the shit I be trying.
I'm like, what did
No,
you
but
realize?
I just realized like, you know what I mean? Even the puppet master, you know what I mean? Like that's what I was gonna say. I
What?
was gonna say
Okay. Oh, that's what
even
you.
the puppet
Okay.
master got limits, kind of thing.
Mhm.
The string only goes so far, right? Or
Right.
sometimes maybe those puppets, maybe they string ain't even actually attached and
Mm.
they're just dancing based off of what you are saying. But if you ain't saying nothing, if you're not texting, if you're not constantly giving them your energy, then that dance changes.
Okay. Big metaphor. Big metaphor here. But I think
Right.
I think
But
what
let's, yeah,
I'm
let's get back in the
I
room.
think I feel like what I'm hearing you say is something around like you sometimes when you're dating someone, it sounds like you kind of like almost drive or orchestrate. I put this down for a second. You almost like drive or orchestrate the connection between you guys by like you're the one staying engaged, you're the one, saying like, hey, we should go do this. Like you're kind of making things happen a little bit more versus maybe if you surrendered to how that person was, it wouldn't feel like you needed to even.
Do all
Well,
of that.
right, like that's kind of what I was getting from what you were saying, but please correct.
Yeah. No, no, you're on the right page. I
Okay.
just was gonna so to kind of add to that too, it's like if I am doing all of that, if I do have to do all that, that's a huge red flag deal breaker, basically, because it takes two to tango. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I can't be holding up a limp body dancing. I need your ass to be doing the steps too, doing, adding some rhythm in it. If it's just me
Mhm.
adding the funk, then baby, that's a no go, you
Mm,
know?
I
So that's
understand.
what I was
What
referring to that.
So you said like that's an area of your life where you could surrender a little bit more,
Oh, I thought it
right?
was an area that we were having issues with, but we have fully surrendered.
Oh, you surrendered now.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
so you wanting
okay.
like the present struggle live for the
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, I was wondering if you had
Uh
anything that maybe you are still trying to
uh
control in life that you haven't surrendered to, or where you might see an opportunity right now in your life to surrender.
um I guess with I would say with eating, you know what I mean?
You read my mind. Go
Sometimes
ahead.
I have to eat in a certain way, but then if my body's like,
Oh,
"Hey,
can
that's
you
not for
repeat
you."
that? I'm so sorry. You froze for a second. What'd you
Oh,
say?
my bad.
It's okay.
Sorry, the internet here is iffy. You know what? Give me 1 second because I think I don't know if my battery's plugged in. Give me a second, guys.
Oh, okay.
Okay. There we go. My bad.
Your
Okay.
eyebrows
That
just
should
look
help.
so good.
Oh, thank you, baby. I do it
They look
myself.
so freaking good. They're just so luscious. Oh my God. When you were like bending down, you got like a little closer. The
A
light
little
was like
closer to the
shining
cam.
right on your head.
Oh,
I was like, oh
you
my
know what's
God.
crazy? I don't even have my light on today. I'm sorry, y'all. We are just all over the place.
Wow,
So,
that's super bright.
this is behind the scenes.
Wow, we in the
I think this is
club.
the one I use. Okay, there we go. Wow, I don't know what's the time mark on right now.
I don't even know. It doesn't
Hey, we're
say.
back. Welcome to Soul Barbecue. No, I don't even know what we were talking about. I'm sorry.
No, because we were saying an area in your life where you can possibly surrender a little bit more. And then you said
Oh
eating,
yeah,
and I
we're
was
talking
like,
about
oh, yeah.
food.
And then you were getting
Yeah,
into it, but you had kind of
yeah, yeah.
blipped a
Okay,
second.
so I forgot where I was going with that, but we're just gonna kind of free flow.
That's okay.
But oh, okay, so I've all like with certain foods, like we hear, oh, we have to eat this or we should eat that to be
Mhm.
healthy. And then you try it and your body's like, why are you doing this to me? So
Mm,
I had to surrender to like, even though I may want to eat something, if my body's saying it's not the right time or this isn't the right food for me, I kind of surrender to that, despite
mhm.
me feeling like I want to eat what I want to eat. And in some senses, I'll just say, maybe F it sometimes, but then I have an awareness of, hey, this is gonna happen. So then you kind
Yeah.
of just weigh the pros and cons, you know.
Mm. Do you feel that when you like, what are some of the other, let me ask you like this, what are some of the other benefits of letting go a little bit more in that area?
Letting go, yeah, because as we know, or some of us may know that we used to be vegan, and I just felt like it was very non-surrendering, always control. We had to read every
Yeah.
label, we had to ask all these questions. So I felt
Hmm.
like that was so stressful and so like I guess time consuming in the end.
Hmm.
And when you kind of let go of some of that stuff, not saying don't ever look at the label or whatever, but maybe just kind of
Yeah.
release and maybe forget every once in a while. having that serenity to say, hey, like I'm eating healthy most of the time. I'm working out. My vibration's good. If it's my time kind of thing. And just knowing you're doing everything around that to make sure that you're gonna be good, then
Hmm.
it's okay. Like surrender to your intentions that you know that you have the best for yourself. Surrender to that positive energy
Yeah.
and just trust in the rest. It's just so much, more stress free than before.
Bingo. Bingo, bingo, bingo. I love that because when an added benefit to surrendering and letting go and not trying to control certain things is literally less stress. Like
Ooh.
you're not stressing yourself out because, I think even more so than food sometimes, like the stress of certain situations will weigh you down. That will deteriorate your body. That stress is behind certain autoimmune diseases and things like that, and
Mm-hmm.
dis-ease in the body. Like that is behind it a lot
Facts.
of times. And so I'm right there with you. I was going to use the same example that you just talked about. Food, eating.
Because
What am I putting
it's
in my body?
wild.
It's
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 so wild.
it's wild. It's a struggle. And I think like you were already really open on our podcast about how, you weren't vegan anymore, things like that. I've never formally announced it for me.
Oh shit, my bad.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I'm not, I think, so this is a really actually a great example of the whole acknowledgement versus acceptance thing because
Mm-hmm.
I acknowledged for myself that I was no longer vegan. But I think like I was not comfortable accepting that outwardly or being around certain people and like eating animal proteins and stuff like that. Like I wasn't truly accepting it, and like sometimes I
Mm-hmm.
would kind of be like, ooh, maybe I'll go back or whatever. Um, but I think like now I'm at a point where I can accept it and it makes me feel better, and I don't even want to say better. I want to say definitely more at peace, knowing that now what's at the forefront of my mind is listening to my body, intuitively eating, and not having so much guilt around like what I'm eating. Like I guess this year I've been focusing on more of like a healthy relationship with my food.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just kind of letting that guide you based off of maybe social pressures or, cult sayings, whatever we want to call it. So, yeah, I love
It
that for
it
you.
I do too, and I gotta tell you, like, a lot of meals are still actually plant-based. A lot of meals are still like plant-based or vegetarian more so. But it's just that
Beautiful.
I'm not restricting myself. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm not looking at certain things and saying like, oh my God, this was made in a facility and that maybe it touched milk, so I can't have it, or
Yeah.
I'm not denying oh, let me give you a good example. Okay.
What's up?
Even a year ago, I would have never been able to enjoy this restaurant that I tried out yesterday. It was amazing. So I Spanish cuisine, like not just Mexican food, but like Spanish from like Spain, Cuban food, Puerto Rican food, like Spanish.
Peru.
Yeah, like stuff like it's my top cuisine. Like I love Spanish food. I love like Caribbean food as well. Um, but anyway, I saw that there was this Cuban restaurant that had like amazing reviews and the food just looked so good and I was so excited to go. And I actually ended up eating two things because the food was so good.
What, what'd you
Num
eat?
Number 1, I had a smash, like, plantain that also had, shredded chicken on top of it.
Oh.
Delicious.
Chef's
It
kiss.
was it was amazing, and it did have, cheese too. And I was just like, "Oh my god, this pairing, like, it's a little sweet, it has a lot of protein, it's a little, like, savory too." Like, they did the balance very, very well. But then I also had, a pollo a la plancha, and it's like a grilled chicken sandwich kinda thing, but it
Entiendo.
Yeah. And it
No, I'm sorry.
but it has like these really skinny like potatoes on it, almost like very skinny fries and
Ooh,
some veggie.
wow.
Yeah, it had like lettuce, tomato, onion, the very skinny like fry stuff, and then the chicken. Um, and the bread was amazing. But there were so many
Ah,
things just in that meal I would not have touched. Gluten,
mm.
dairy,
Oh no.
chicken, like all, all of these things. And after eating that meal, like where a year ago or 2 years ago, however long, I would have beat myself up so much about it that I would have been like, oh my God, I'm sick now. I'm so sick because I would have stressed
Mm.
myself out. But I literally allowed myself to enjoy it, not like feel bad or anything at all. No issues. No issue. You know what I
So
mean? I think
true.
sometimes
So
it comes
true.
from the mind more so than it really is coming from the body. But anyway, yeah. So I'm right there with you. What I've chosen, not even had to, what I've chosen to surrender to this year has been my relationship with food. And I'm still working on it. I'm not perfect at all, but um it's been fruitful. Get it? Pun
Yeah.
intended.
Ah, you're like, I'm not even gonna wait. I'm just gonna let it go. No, it was cute. Um, with surrenderance though, uh,
Hmm.
I don't know. It made me think of, well, before we go into that, I liked how you were saying a lot of times it is like mental, because I felt there's a few times where I remember on the vegan journey where I'll be eating eggs or I'll have cheese and dairy and I'll be fine until I found out that's what it was. Because remember that time in Portland when we
Yeah.
had something, them scrambled
Mhm.
eggs, it was supposed to be like vegan, and I was just tearing
Mhm.
them up, right? And you're like, those are real eggs, and I was like, oh, I thought these were like the vegan
Mhm.
eggs, and you're like, no, baby, those are eggs, and I was
Yeah,
like, yeah,
cause yeah,
I
that's
need a
we
new.
I think we went to a vegetarian place or something like that, and if you didn't
Right.
like specify, like they would give you something else. And so I remember what you're talking about, yeah, and then yeah, it was like real
I had ate
eggs.
like 2/3 of it, and
Mhm.
you were like, by the way, and I was like, I was feeling good, like my stomach wasn't hurting nothing, and then when I
Mhm.
found out everything was hurting, so I
Right.
was like, oh man, I've been mentally poisoning myself with these
Right.
negative, self-fulfilling prophecies that we download onto ourselves.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Do you think like that makes me feel, and I have experiences, but that's why I love affirmations. That's why I
mhm.
love like affirmations, recording my own affirmations and listening to them sometimes, like first thing when I wake up. But I love those because what our words and what we believe really has the power to create our reality and how we're living. And so just like in your example that you had, it was like because you kind of freaked out and you thought something was wrong, then you like made all these other things happen.
And
Um,
then the body followed the mind and gave you
right.
those problems that you were expecting.
Right. It's like, "Oh, you said this was going on, so here you go. Yeah, this is
Hmm.
happening now." So, yeah,
And
that's
I even had to act like I even had to learn a lesson with like things like gluten. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, don't eat like a whole, loaf of bread, but you gotta have it
yeah.
here and there. Like, who gives like,
Yeah.
and then when I started having that mindset, stuff started stop hurting. So I was like,
Mhm.
oh,
I think like
mm.
this is also when you were saying like earlier, if it's my time, it's my time. Do you kind of believe that we already have a time? You know what I mean? Like we already have a time when we come into the physical reality. So it's not to say that what you like, for example, what you're choosing to eat is going to really affect the time because your time has always been your time.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I would
Okay.
say for the food thing, yeah, like it might affect your time, it might not. I just feel like the food thing might affect the in between those times. So it's
Mm,
kind of like maybe if you never smoke cigarettes, and maybe your time, no one knows, but maybe your time's in 3 months, or sorry, in 3 years,
Yeah.
and you just started smoking cigarettes, and maybe before you started smoking, your time you would have just been healthy and feeling good, but because you were smoking before, maybe that time got sped up, or
Mhm.
the quality of those 3 years decreased
Mm.
because of your decisions. So maybe your decisions may not actually change your time, but it might decrease the quality of that time you have in between your actual, life, basically.
Quality of
The,
it. Yeah.
the
Okay.
quality of the time. So, but also depending on the quality of those decisions, they
Mhm.
can shorten the time or create a new time.
Hmm.
So I think we have the power, like, yeah, everything's like predetermined from maybe one level, but at the same time, if you know that, you can like intentionally change things too. I don't think we're just some like, oh, we're human and we're just out of touch with our soul and our afterlife or our divinity. I feel like it's still flowing within us as we have to move maybe a little differently, but we still have the capability to change things, extend things. Yeah, if it's your time, it's your time, sure. But also, I'm not going to say we don't have power either. So,
Mm.
because I never want to say we're in a defeatist chair, or
Yeah.
we have to give up our life and time to a predestined thing. Your destiny is created every day by decisions you make,
Yeah.
predestined
When
or not.
you were saying like it doesn't mean we have to, necessarily give up our power and that. And I was just kind of wondering when we're thinking about this whole topic, like controlling, surrendering, all of that. When do you feel a person should take control more so of their situation?
If they're not happy with it, you know, if you feel like you
Mm-hmm.
want changes, that means you've been letting some things be too free form. There's a ebb and flow to this surrender and control shit.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do need to take the bull by the horns and say, hey, let's move in this direction. And
Right.
usually I would say do that if you're not happy where you're at. If you just want, and that's not like in your vicinity right now, then you got to make a step towards that. So you got
If
to
you
add
just want
control.
what?
If you Oh, my internet. I was saying if you wanted something new, if you wanted
Something new. Okay.
something, then you got to make a step towards that, a step
Mm-hmm.
towards control.
Yeah.
And then once you kind of start moving those directions, then you can kind of surrender to the fact that, hey, I'm making steps towards my goal, so it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And
Do
then
the
start changing that mental talk,
I was
you know.
You went where I was going. I was just
Telepathy,
saying that
baby.
too.
Telepathy.
Yeah. Like taking those steps and doing the actions and giving yourself grace along the way.
Right, because you were saying how affirmations are so powerful, and I think and know the reason why they're so powerful is because though that self-talk, that mental talk, the affirmations, those are enchantments,
Mm.
so positive enchantments or negative ones that
Yeah.
are affecting and reflecting your life, your inner talk.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like a loop of self-magic and
Yeah.
manifestation. It's dope.
What did we used to
So
say? Where your energy goes, it grows, or something like that.
yeah, where your energy flows, the energy rose. Not the exact same, but the vibe is there.
Something
Yeah.
along those lines.
hmm
Still
Y'all
that.
get it. Y'all are
Yeah.
intelligent. You're good.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, what else?
I was gonna see. There were certain things that I think it's okay to um maybe surrender to,
Mm-hmm.
as far as not letting it always be in your control. And I think it's things like the news or certain big things going on. Like if you can't control what's going
Elections.
on in like XYZ in country or XYZ war, XYZ elections, then surrender to that non-control and to focus on what you can control, your life, your personal goals,
Yeah.
your personal feelings, your personal frequency.
Yeah. Yeah. I know like it's, the last few years or maybe since forever. I don't know. Cause maybe I'm only really realizing some of this stuff because now I'm like an adult that's in it. I'm sure some of the same
Hmm.
things were going on when we were kids, but we were just oblivious and didn't care.
Yeah,
Or even when we
different
were in
priorities.
young 20s, right? Didn't care about any of these things.
Right. I mean, some of us are still there, but whatever.
Okay. Just living life
Anyway,
as the days go. We were just having a good time. But yeah, I think like now, especially, this is an election year. And I feel like everything, people are really wrapped up, and I get why. I get why. Like, I know they care about their well being, their
yeah,
family, their country, like, totally, totally
very passionate.
understandable. I think
Love it.
there's something to be said about what you just said though. Like focus on what's within your, what's within your wheelhouse or like what you can control or what you can be empowered about
Yeah, know your
versus
lane. Basically, know your lane.
know your
Period.
lane.
So
They're like, we don't need
you
to say all that.
you are
Know
n-
your lane.
you're not gonna be the president. We don't really, run the government like that. So what can we run? Us.
I don't even believe that the person
And
that becomes president is running the government.
we know, but that's on to another topic.
Okay,
But I
let
was
me stand back.
no, I agree. I'm just saying, like, that's not really changing the point, unfortunately.
But yeah,
So
no, I agree with that because we're getting to that time, and I know like people are riled up, there's so many opinions and things out there and different things, and I'm like,
yeah.
I think we should put more energy. Like, of course, obviously, I understand why they feel the way they feel. It's annoying to me too. I just saw this like flashback on some media that I have or whatever, but you know how it does like this day, this many years ago. And I was
Mm-hmm.
ranting 4 years ago about elections and how I don't care for either side. And, either way, it's this and that. Like I had a whole spiel and I'm like, I really posted this. Like, it's just like,
All the points were the same.
yeah.
You
And
could
it's
have
like,
posted it today and it would have been
I
still
could have,
relevant.
I could have posted it today and it would have still been relevant. That's
Wow.
how much like we're going through these cycles, and I just think like with the amount of energy that people allow for like celebrities, government, like all these things to take from them, if we pour those energies into ourselves and our communities, we would probably be in a much better place because if every person was focusing on themselves, their family and their community, it'd be great. Like imagine, you
Yeah,
know?
100%. Instead of trying to
Um
keep up with the Joneses, you know.
yeah, yeah. So
Another topic though. But
another
anyway.
topic for another day. I'm gonna stop myself there because we got other things to talk
Yeah, I mean that was a great point. Uh
about.
it's okay, guys. Just focus on your life. I promise you, whoever's in that house, it's really not gonna make a difference to your personal life. It's just theater. Theater.
Yeah.
But that's my perception. You,
Mhm.
of course, you have your own. So good luck. Whichever one is more empowering, go with. That's what I
What did you
say.
say earlier? May the odds be ever in your favor.
Right. May the odds be in your favor, guys.
Do
But
you
all
think
right, so
yeah, go ahead.
no.
I was just gonna this was so off topic though. I was just gonna say like I think when we were a little bit younger, sometimes you and I would talk about like living permanently in another country. And I know you kind of, you went through that, you experienced that, you were in South America. South America, or is it considered Central America?
Um, I've heard both, but we
Okay.
can just say central, I
Okay,
guess.
Central America.
I
So I
just
know you were
yeah.
gone for a while and you kind of experienced that. Do you still feel that you would want to,
Mm.
kind of be permanently in another country after your experiences that you had? Or have you now surrendered to the idea?
to the bullshit of the US.
Right. Mhm.
I would say honestly probably option B.
Wow.
Unfortunately, fortunately. Okay, so here's the thing. So I was in Costa Rica for about 6 months. Loved it. It was cool. But when, and they had like some free healthcare that I could just go to the hospital and it was chill. But I ended up still paying because the wait times were not the best if you do the free thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned a little bit about that. Like free healthcare isn't, always the best because you gotta wait 40 years, I feel like sometimes. But anyway, what I really didn't like about that experience is, and maybe why I chose not to live abroad unless maybe the country kind of protects those trying to get citizenship for that country, is because I felt like with certain situations in Costa Rica or just in other Latin American countries is, yeah, they are cheaper, but you don't have all the rights that you would have as a US person. So
Mm.
like I kind of felt like, hey, if this was happening or my passport or this, I mean, they have embassies for that, but it's just like
Right.
there's like a safety net thing that, because like if you're in America, like the laws, you can call this lawyer, you can get these loopholes. It's different in another country. That's not always applicable when you go somewhere else. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, I was having issues with that because I was like, if something happens, I need to be able to have my resources right here.
Right.
You know what I mean? So all these things can kind of be amended a little bit. So, will I ever live abroad again? Perhaps, but I just like the safety net and the conveniences. That's really the main point. The conveniences of the U.S. in certain regards. Now, there's inconveniences like the high ass rent and whatnot, and all the propagandas and the BS going on. But like I was kind of saying earlier, I can't control all of that. So what I'm focused on is controlling me and what I can do in my life. Because
Mm-hmm.
years ago when I was in Washington and they had all the pandemic stuff going on, you can hear on
Yeah.
these older podcast episodes, I was just going through a lot. I was very angry, very depressed,
Yeah.
and it was because I was focusing on shit I had no control over.
Mm-hmm.
Shit I could not touch, shit I could not change, and if I just had simply surrendered to all of that understanding and just focused on improving my personal situation, I probably wouldn't have even gone to Costa Rica. I probably would have been okay to stay in the
Mm.
States. But because I had my focus on things that I can control, which made me feel weak, which made me feel
Powerless. Yeah.
depressed, powerless, all of these things, then of course that's what I was reaping, my self-fulfilling prophecies. So
Wow.
those perspective switches are very important, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. They are. They really
So
are.
yeah.
Yeah, because your perspective is your reality, right? So you were just kind of in this
Facts.
like hell. Really. I remember you back then. It was just like hard to have a conversation sometimes because you was like just pissed the fuck off.
For
Often.
no reason. Yeah, I was
Often.
just permanent PMS, permanent hangry, and
Mm.
I guess it made sense why, because I was starving, malnourished, but that's another topic too. We keep having these like segue ass
It's
episodes trying to
hilarious.
pop
It's
in.
okay because it's so funny to me. It's so funny. It was a definitely a combination of things. I would agree. I would agree.
Woo!
And
Mm.
how have you felt now, like being on the other side, with having empowered yourself in the ways you feel you need to empower yourself, with surrendering in the areas that you want to surrender in, and still controlling or being more mindful in those other areas too. Where has that taken you today?
I think it just has given me a lot more self-awareness. So if I am starting to feel overwhelmed by everything going on, I'm like, okay, hold up, let me take a step back. What am I stressing about? Is that
Yeah.
something that actually maybe just needs to get done, or is it something that I'm taking on from something else that I actually can't control? So it's
Mm-hmm.
just about like just breaking things down again,
Mm-hmm.
having that self-reflection, and then based off of that information, making a decision, making those action steps. Right.
Right.
So that's just kind of how I would address. Did I answer your question? I'm
You
sorry, baby.
did. No, no,
Was
no,
that
no. No,
was
it's
that okay?
you kind of I mean you kind of talked about steps more so like than how you're doing, I guess, today, but I kind of
Oh,
wanted
how
to
I'm
know the
doing.
steps
Okay.
anyway. So yeah, you can talk about how you're doing now.
Okay, I was like, I know there's a second part I was missing, um, but I'm feeling a lot more chill, like a lot less stress. I feel like mentally I'm just a lot more clear and collected.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing is like if I do feel like I'm overwhelmed, I like write things out to see like those
Mm-hmm.
steps that I was just saying. So if I'm like, what's going on in my brain? I don't know. Let me just write it out, or let me just type it out. Let me use a voice note it out. Just get it
Right.
out so I can kind of reflect from there because sometimes we just have like a lot going on, or maybe there might be just a lot of things going through our head. And if
Mm-hmm.
you just kind of can take it out your head and physicalize it in this world, then you can kind of like take away all that power or the stress of it. Because you're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's just this. Like
Mm.
these right here, this is like a sticky notepad.
Right.
This is my shit right here.
It's your
This
shit.
I love like writing out little, I don't know, ideas, tasks, whatever. And I just can look at it and be like, oh, okay, I can do all this. And
Mm-hmm.
then you just kind of check it off or rip it up and you're like, oh, a list is, I don't know, it kind of like
The lit,
having it physicalized,
yes.
that having that check, you just feel like instant gratification. And then you
Mm-hmm.
can rip it up like, damn, I fucked up this day in a good way. You know, and you can just throw it away and just forget it and then have more mental space and clarity for other things in the future.
Right.
So I feel great, basically.
I love it. I love to hear. I love to see it. I love to see like you more consistently in a better place, emotionally, and how you see yourself, how you see the world, how now you're like excited about certain things, you're more chill about things. Like there's a
Hmm.
lot I think that's like come around for you since you've done more of that work in your life. So that's amazing.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that because sometimes,
Yeah.
we just be living life and we don't know how we are coming off towards others. So it's nice to have that kind of, I guess, outside validation in some senses. So just for the fact that we can't always see ourselves. So thank you.
Of course, you've been doing much better this year. This year, you've been in a much better place.
That undertone, though, I picked that up, but
You
thank
have.
you.
You have been in a much better place. Cause I think that was last year, maybe we had our blowout. Yes.
Yeah. And the crazy part is I don't remember like all the details either. That's the crazy part.
It's
Okay, I remember some of
crazy.
them.
It's
Yeah. Okay, it
crazy.
came
I
back.
think,
But
in our relationship, how long we've known each other, I feel like we've done pretty good because we can agree to disagree about certain stuff, but we really haven't like all out argued, until last year. I think we had
yeah.
enough.
I mean, it been about 10 years. Like shit. It's about
Right.
time.
Exactly.
So,
But I'm saying that to also say that I feel like if that would have happened in, 2020 or something like that, we might not even be talking, you know?
oh yeah, girl. I was even considering. I was like, should I just block everyone on my phone? Like, that's how crazy that vegan diet had me, yo. Like, that's so crazy. I was like, what if I blocked everyone? My family. I was
Oh
like,
my God.
cult, cult thinking, guys, cult thinking. And it might
I'm
have been my
glad you
personality
didn't.
adding to it because I'm just like a 100 person. Like it's either I'm 0 to 100 all the
Hmm.
way extreme. So it might be that, but that plus that, the diet, disaster.
Equals
But yes,
blocked,
what were we talking?
basically. But yeah, thank you for
Oh yeah,
sharing.
us. All right. Yeah, it
Thank
happened,
you.
but we're good now.
Wow.
So
Um,
are we?
are you grateful for anything today?
Yeah, absolutely. I have been grateful for so much, but I'm grateful today for friendship, kindred spirit, twin
Oh,
flames.
Kindred? Yeah, Kindred. I thought you were about to say Kendrick. I was like, Lamar, what are you talking?
Ain't nobody talking about that nig. No.
Kindred
No, we
spirit.
we saw Kendrick back in the day,
We
remember?
did, and it was probably
2018.
that was,
The
I think that
damn
was the
tour.
damn tour, and it was the best.
That was literally the hype of his career. Like he was it back
Yep.
then.
Amazing album.
And we
Like
had front row seats to that.
it was so good. Was Travis Scott there? Isn't that when we saw Travis Scott or no?
Yeah, yeah, it was Travis Scott and Drum. What's his
Yeah,
name?
Dram. Mm-hmm.
Dram. What's his name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they both were there, and they did good. I was
It
like,
was it
it,
was good.
it was a good vibe.
It was really great.
And that was the year Cardi was first coming out too with like Bodak Yellow. So
Mm-hmm.
that summer was litty.
It was
Summer and
so
Halloween was just it was too much fun. We'll just say
it
that.
was
Oh my
so
God.
much fun. Yeah, we'll talk about that offline. But yes, it was a lot of fun.
But yeah, what are you grateful for though? Oh,
Um,
I guess to finish mine, I'm sorry,
oh,
we kind of went off, but I'm
yeah.
just grateful for people, and by that, I'm grateful for you, strong relationships, and just holding up for the test of time, surrendering to time
Mhm.
and learning. But
Yeah.
yes, switching it back to you.
Thank you. Today, honestly on the topic of what we're talking about. Like, I'm grateful for my ability to surrender to certain things. Um, I think like this year has challenged me a little bit where, okay,
Mm,
so just to kind of broadly talk about it, I have usually been more so like caretaker in my life, things like that. And
mm-hmm.
I have been very grateful to surrender to my life looking a different way, honestly, having more time to like focus on me, my passions, the things that I want to do, and also kind of being okay with not always needing to be in the driver's seat. I think like that's something that does not come naturally for me, but letting
Yeah.
someone else drive, like I'm grateful for that. And yeah, opportunities. I mean, I'm grateful for so many things. Honestly, right now I feel like very clear-minded. Um,
Mm,
I'm just in a I'm in
hmm.
a I'm in a really peaceful spot and I'm so grateful for that.
I love that.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you are just enjoying some of the perks and surrendering to that and
Mhm.
letting yourself know it's okay to have life perks
It
because
is.
we're all deserving.
We are. And I think once I started telling myself, like, I am worthy and believing that I deserve what I get, like I deserve
Mhm.
what I have and what I can have, like it just made it so much nicer, Like we gotta like the words matter. And we're talking about affirmations and things like that. Words matter. And I've just been saying a whole lot of
Yeah.
positive ones lately. So
Hell yeah. That
I'm
I'm
over it.
deserving one was literally that has been mine for the last 2 or 3 months. That was
Mhm.
one of the ones I've used. So I love that. But yeah. It
Yeah,
works
it
if
does.
you work it.
It does. It works. So,
But other than that, I have loved this discussion. Thank everyone for tuning in, for staying patient with us, and for stopping in to
yeah.
the kickback.
To the kickback today, but same. And I hope everybody enjoys the rest of your day, your evening, your morning, your weekend, your weekday, whenever, wherever you're listening to this. I hope it's going blissfully.
Marvelously, yes.
Yeah.
Ciao.
All right. See y'all next time. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If today's kickback nourished your soul, please be sure to subscribe, tell a friend, or leave a review.
And don't forget to check out the description to find out how to connect with us on social media.